Just to confirm, you'll pass the mic.
Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me? We're now live. I'm hoping that everyone can hear us and see us. We are today here for another Jakarta Tech Talk. Today we have IoT powered by Microprofile, microservices in practice. So we'll see how things are working out. And with us, we have both Rustam Mehmederov and Mads Ophim. Please correct me with my pronunciation. And I will invite people to post their questions in the chat, or there is a little in the middle of the screen, there is a ask a question place where you can ask questions and let us know how things are going. And with that, I'll turn it over to Rustam and Mads. And if there are any issues with the crowdcast, with the broadcasting, please let me know in chat. You have this fabulous opportunity to use the crowdcast with us for the very first time.
Yeah,
so if there are some glitches, please do let us know. Okay, over to you guys.
Thanks. Thank you very much. Do we have a picture? I was just I don't think there is a picture for on the video stream for everyone.
I see it quite well.
Okay. Okay, fine. It's black on my side, but I guess as long
now
as everybody else can. Okay.
Yeah, I can see your PowerPoint presentation.
Okay, you can see the presentation. Perfect.
Yes.
Just me then. All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get started then. Okay. So hi everyone. Hey is hi in Norwegian. So just since we're in Norway, we can say hi in Norwegian. So welcome to this talk on Microprofile in practice.
Yeah, it's. I guess it's. Should we present ourselves, or should we do it later, or how do we do that?
Yeah, I think we can just say a couple of words.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my name is Mats, as Tanya just said. I'm a tech lead in Norwegian consultancy company called Competos. Do mainly program in Java. And like that a lot.
Yeah, and my name is Rustam. I also work together with Mats in the same company, and also I do quite a few community stuff as well. I'm leading a conference that you might have heard of called JavaZone. I've been doing it for the last 3 years, and before that, involved in lots of parts of that conference and organizing that thing. And also, I do quite a bit of talks and stuff like that, mostly about Java and cloud and this kind of stuff. So you'll get our contact information in a bit. And well, as Tanya said, if there's any questions or anything, feel free to shout it out, and then we'll try to ask. We'll try to repeat them at some points, or as fast as we see them.
But okay, before we go further, some of you might be distracted by the fact that there are 3 light bulbs right ahead of us. You'll understand why later on during the presentation. We're going to use them for some fun.
Yeah. So this is supposed to be a demo. All right.
Yeah. Why are we here then? Why are we doing this talk? And like the first motivation is like quite egoistic in a way, in the sense that both Rustam and I thought that Microprofile sounds fun. So what is it? So we figured we had to learn about it. So.
Yeah. Well, the thing was that it's kind of introductory. I mean, for some of you who've worked with this kind of things before, it might seem to be kind of introductory, but in a way, it's also a way of trying out new technology and trying to find a kind of fun project to try that thing out, instead of using microservices and everything to write like super hardcore enterprise architecture kind of stuff. You can actually start with something fun and then it will be much easier to get started with a few other projects. So this was our way of learning. Learning stuff, and then we kind of want to share the experience, what we've learned, and how things worked out with the rest of you.
Yeah, and we also, when we started this project, we found that there were not that many example projects on Microprofile. There were like a couple of examples on some parts of it, and a couple of examples on other parts, but few examples out there that showed lots of Microprofile in one application. So we wanted to make that as well, so you can have, if you want to see some code examples and such. We have created an example.
Yeah, and then there will be code as well, links to the code. So yeah.
So should we go on to what we're talking about then? So yeah, new office, new lights. So we just mentioned the lights, and currently we're in our company's office. We moved here. The company moved here like a year ago, and that's about the same time when we started looking into Microprofile. So we thought, oh, new office. Oh, okay, we need some lights in the new office. So that's a great opportunity. So let's create an app for that.
Yeah, so that was kind of the fun way of selling in the why should we buy lots of equipment and stuff like that. We were like, oh, we're going to experiment. We're going to do like bleeding edge light controlling things. But I mean, there is a kind of system in this kind of craziness as well, because thing is that you might want to have, when you're moving to like brand new building with all these fancy things, you might want to do like to adjust lights depending on, I don't know, weather and like time of the day, maybe. Because, well, since we live in Norway, we have a little bit, slightly dark winters. You know, the sun goes up kind of late and goes down quite early. So, you know, you might want to lighten things up a little bit in an office or like inside the buildings, right? So the idea was to create something that will be controlled by outside conditions like sunny, cloudy, things like that, or maybe temperature or time of the year and things like that. And then, well, we thought maybe we should do something about it. Yeah, and another feature that we haven't implemented yet, but which I just came to think about, is that I work with some people that like a lot of lights around them when working. Yeah. Like myself, but I also work with people that prefer to like sit in total darkness, like no lights at all. So that's also one thing we could have done. It's like add this personal adjustment thing. So like, okay, if it's Joe sitting over there, then we dim the lights by 70%. But if it's Jane, then we increase the lighting. But we haven't done that yet. Yeah, and then actually there is a thing. I mean, there is a market for that. I don't know how it is for the rest of the world. But in countries where might be a bit dark for some seasons, say a year, there is actually a market for that. They're selling like big light things that simulate sun for you, so in the mornings and stuff, so you actually feel a bit more awake and stuff. So it might be kind of weird thing to think about for some countries, but I think some of the countries, like also we talked to Tanya, she lives in Canada, and I guess it's kind of a little bit of the same thing. Somehow there as well. Depends, I guess, where, but yeah. Well, anyway, that was a bit of motivation, and maybe we should mention a little bit of architecture. So how this thing was put together. Yeah. So what have we actually done? Like, been thinking about doing? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Add coffee and enterprise developers. Well, here we are. Yeah, well, actually, the enterprise developers, that's worth mentioning. The idea was, again, we wanted to learn stuff. I mean, the idea was not to create a super production-ready light system and stuff. It was like, okay, let's just use it as a fun project and then learn lots of stuff. So we ended up on purpose, to some extent, I guess, over-engineering stuff and creating like microservices and crazy stuff. Because, I mean, if you would be doing it like proper for like production ready stuff, then it would probably make it a little bit simpler, but then we wouldn't learn all the other things. So we kind of went all the way and went to a bit overboard because of the enterprise stuff, because this is what we do every day, like developing software for enterprise software, EE kind of software, right? And then that's where the enterprise developer part comes in. Yeah, so like stay tuned for over-engineered solutions. We shall some of them during the end. Towards the end of the talk,
but let's move on to the architecture.
Yeah, speaking of over engineering things. The architecture is kind of simple, really. The thing is that you have a few things that are still under construction, so those are a bit grayed out. But then you have a tiny little, very small, very micro services that would provide some kind of information to the main kind of controller thing that would take all that as an input and make a decision on how lights should be.
Yeah, because we don't want to like manually think about how much light should we have.
Yeah.
We want just to push a button and then.
Or even don't push the buttons at all. Just
even better. Yeah. I don't want to care about it. I want the computer to do it for me. So that's the part of the gateway service. That's the brain in a sense.
Yeah, and then you have obviously things like obviously you need a time service that will provide surprise time. So it will be just tell you what time of the day it is and maybe what if it is a weekend or not, things like that, right? You will have a weather service that will take care of like outside temperature or sunny, cloudy kind of things like conditions, weather conditions.
Yeah, and weather forecast as well.
And then you have the lighting control service, which is basically it's a service that it's a kind of what do we call it, like separation of concerns kind of thing.
Yeah,
right?
kind of. But you can also say that it's
anti-corruption
anti-corruption layer.
So the lightning service is the one that talks to the lights. It has nothing to do with the lightnings outside, and we have not created a service to create lightnings yet. We're working on that. It probably will be in version 2.0. But for now, it's just to control the lights.
Yeah. So let's just dive into the first one, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is like the overview of the architecture. So okay, yeah, but let's start by saying what Microprofile is, I guess. I guess that not everyone are familiar with Microprofile yet. At least that's not my experience. My experience is that many people are new to Microprofile, which is perfectly fine. So that's a great opportunity to learn more. So easily put, like if you want to summarize Microprofile in one sentence, it's Java EE for microservices. Yeah,
and it's actually very true because we did this talk quite a few places, and we did kind of raise of hands, and we're like, okay, how many of you have used Java? And then it would be most of the people would raise hands, and Java EE, again, a lot. And then you will be like, okay, how many of you used Spring Boot? And then it will still be kind of majority of the room. And then it was like Microprofile, it will be much less because people, it's not, I mean, I can't really say it's a new thing anymore. It's been there for a little bit of time, but it still is less known kind of thing. So that's one of the reasons we're doing this talk as well, to kind of spread the awareness of that thing and explain and show that it's actually very easy to get started and use it and everything.
Yeah, and it's also, I guess it's also worth saying that exactly the same way, or mostly the same way as Java EE or Jakarta EE, I guess I should say. Jakarta EE, Microprofile is a standard, so it's like it's not the Microprofile implementation as such, but it's a standard which several vendors can implement, which we'll come back to.
Yeah, and also there is since I mentioned Spring Boot, we probably should say what is the difference, because there is also a thing that people usually ask. They were like, yeah, but I mean, isn't that the same as whatever, right? So I guess it's worth mentioning that as well.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it is. And like the short version, or like the short way to put that, it's like if you are familiar with Java EE, Jakarta EE, then they're the same concepts, the same things are in Microprofile. Whereas if you're switching to Spring Boot, you have to learn the Spring way of doing things. Yeah.
So the concepts will be the same. If you're used to kind of the Java Jakarta EE version of doing things, it will be the concepts and the way of doing things will be very, very similar. So you don't really have to learn much new stuff. I mean, even though we IT people will love learning a new stuff, but sometimes it's easy to stick to what you know and stuff like that.
Yeah. And there's also the benefit as well as the drawback. We can bring back to this later, that Microprofile is a standard, while as Spring Boot pretty much is an implementation. So like, if there's something you don't like about your current Microprofile implementation, you can switch to another one.
Yeah.
Which is, we'll come back to that.
Yeah.
But pros and cons.
Let's talk about the community a bit. For Microprofile.
Yeah.
I guess we should mention that as well. There is.
That's the next one, right?
Yeah, that's the next one. So it is. It's quite a well spread community, I would say. I mean, it's like as you can see, it's quite a lot of different both companies that do provide application servers, like I don't know, Payara, Red Hat, IBM, Tommy Tribe. What else? Oracle. So you have, or Cumulus. And then you have also Java communities, and then you have other companies that kind of like Microsoft, that they don't have their own application server, but they still kind of support this.
And it's like everything from huge companies like Oracle and Microsoft to smaller like Hammock and even some Java user groups, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
LJC, isn't that the
London Java user group, Java community?
Yeah. So we borrowed these slides from the official Microprofile presentation, just in case anyone wonders. Hope they're fine with that. All right, so let's look at the different implementations of Microprofile then.
So as Mats mentioned, the thing is that it is a standard. So somebody defines how things should be looking at the end. And then there are other companies, other providers of those application services that are implementing those standards. So this is the implementation. So this is somebody else looking at the standards and writing their code to fulfill those requirements in a way, right? And well, there you can see quite a lot of I would say usual suspects there, because I mean there is a lot of things that you've seen before. You have Open Liberty, you have Tommy EE, you have Thorntail. So Thorntail, in case of you wondering, this is kind of a spin-off of a spin-off a little bit. So it's like fork in a way of what was Wildfly at some
it's
point.
like the microservice version of Wildfly, formerly known as Wildfly Swarm. From Red Hat.
So Wildfly Swarm was renamed to Thorntail, and then it got this cute little logo as well. So I think it looks nice.
It's also worth saying a few words about the app server you might be missing here. Some of you might have noticed the Quarkus hype that's been going on since it was released like half a year ago. So Quarkus is Red Hat's new application server, ultra lightweight and so on. We're going to be using it on an example later on. Like one of the applications is running on Quarkus. But what you might note, you might ask then, why aren't they shown here? And that's Quarkus is implementing most of the Microprofile standards, but not all of them. So you can't say that Quarkus is a full Microprofile implementation.
But I guess soon, right? I mean, at some point.
I think they're working on it. Quarkus is doing some things really different. So there are some work to do.
Okay. So now with that thing out of the way, I guess we should mention what's inside. I mean, what comes with the package.
What is really Microprofile? As we said, it's a standard, and in the same way as Jakarta EE, it's like a collection of standards. It's more right to say. So it's kind of a pick and mix kind of thing, where you kind of stand in front of a big wall of I don't know, like chocolates or whatever, and you just pick whatever you want and put it in your bag. So this is kind of, in a way, it is like that, and this is what they. This Microprofile standard was kind of picked for us. That makes the development of microservices and stuff like that much easier and much more smooth. And then you have things like obvious things like CDI, and obviously you cannot really create much of a microservices without a REST client or JSONP or JAX-RS and JSONB, things like that. But then it has also lots of nice features, like the
health checks and stuff.
Yeah, so like the underlying idea behind Microprofile, at least as far as I've understood it, is that the things you typically need in a microservice nowadays. And that includes, the usual suspects as Rista mentioned, but also, health tech, which is perfectly fine combined with Kubernetes.
Yeah.
So if you're doing Kubernetes liveness probe, readiness probe, perfectly fits with health tech.
And then you have metrics that will also fit well with the other things that are there for measuring things. And you have obviously fault tolerance and all those kind of things that you really, most of the time, you won't really get away with a microservice that does not support those things, or you would want to support that, right?
So I think the idea is that if you're doing a microservice in Java, you can get away with only one dependency on Microprofile.
Yeah.
In most cases.
Yeah. And the thing is that, so what happens is that for each version that comes out, so now we're looking at 3.0 that's been released, 2 months ago? For each version, the things are kind of updating. So in most of the case, I mean, lately it's been not that much changes inside, like what boxes are added or removed, mostly added, but then they kind of keep on upgrading versions of that mostly. So REST clients has been there for quite some time, but now it's version 1.3. So it's been updated, or health check. So as you can see, the blue ones has been updated since last version. And then you have the
Orange.
The color is, I don't know, yellow, orange, kind of whatever that thing is that there is no change from last time.
Yeah.
And it's getting a bit more stable now, so it's not really that much changes, but yeah.
Yeah, we started doing this coding, obviously before version 3.0, and the upgrade from 2.2 to 3.0 took us 30 minutes. Not even that. Like, we updated the version in some POM files, and it was really minor changes, and afterwards everything worked. So it was quite easy to upgrade. So it's starting to stabilize. It is stabilizing. It's quite stable.
It is stable, yeah. And it's also very easy to create things. I mean, once you've done it once. Yeah, right. But I mean, like, once you've done it, it's much easier to create new ones, because, like, again, when we worked on this for the first time, it was a bit unusual and stuff like that. It was, how things work, and this is how they make it work and stuff like that. But then after that, I think each of us created a bunch of like new services just for fun in Microprofile, and it was very easy and very quick. But all
right, let's head on.
So since we're talking about microservices.
Yeah. And so in microservices, typically you care about, how big is it, how fast does it start up, these kind of things. How lightweight is it? Right? Yeah. Because some people claim that Java is heavy and so on, which is no longer necessarily true. Yeah. Which this is, an example of that. This one's from, I don't remember, last year or in the year before. So here you can see Wildfire Swarm, the previous name. But still, the important thing is to see, the footprint and the startup time in seconds, which is, not really much. So
it's pretty cool. I mean, this is again what you would expect from a microservice. It's going to be fast, and it's going to take very little place. I mean, like space on like in megabytes. So the footprint is going to be very little.
Yeah, and if you want to run it in a cloud and scale up and down pods and so on, and startup time is also important.
So and then I guess there is a question about what about Quarkus. I suppose that you're asking about the startup times and everything. If you're doing that, I have an answer. A very short version of answer is that we'll get back to that, and it's crazy. Yeah. I mean, and on that cliffhanger, I think we'll move on, but we'll get back to that. If it was not this question you were asking, then try again, and we'll try to answer that.
Yeah, okay, so let's head on to the first service. So we're going to look into different services we created, like what kind of some parts of Microprofile are we using on each service, and why, and so on. So the light control service, which speaks with those. This part.
That's this part, and that's what it does. So we're using for this demo we're using Philips Hue, but the point is that you could use anything else. So that control service talks to a library that was created by Philips. So a jar kind of file that is created by them. So then you can actually control the lights and stuff through your code.
That was a pretty cool thing. The first time I controlled the lights by saying Java.
Yeah, that's actually quite fun. But then, so what we're going to do now is to show you a few pieces of basically features. So we're going to be showing off those contents of those little boxes that you saw earlier, or dependency injection and stuff like that. Some of them will be very obvious, and some of them will be a bit more kind of, oh, this is cool. This is something that I want to use in my project, hopefully.
So let's start from the beginning, I guess.
Yeah, the most obvious, I guess.
Yeah, most obvious. CDI, dependency injection. It's exactly the same as Java Jakarta EE. So that's also a principle in Microprofile. Like wherever there is a standard from Jakarta EE that's suitable, we just reuse that instead of making it over again. So it's the same CDI as in Jakarta EE. So
another next, I guess, from next slide from the captain's obvious.
Yeah.
I guess would be to mention surprise, surprise, you can actually generate JSON, and you can do you can define URLs and stuff for your queries.
Yeah.
Which is probably not a very surprising thing that you can do for a microservice, but I guess it's kind of honorable mention kind of section of this talk.
And these three features were actually those, like Microprofile 1.0, the first version contained these three features, which are all taken directly from Jakarta EE and are identical.
Mm-hmm.
And it's you basically need it everywhere. And for the record, we are aware that we're using a GET request to do mutation of the states. So we gotta fix that later on.
Should be probably post, but something else. But that's.
Yeah, so that's the light control service.
But if you haven't used that or you don't have an experience with this kind of thing, this is how you define a URL to talk to things. So at path, that would be this, and consumes and produces is basically where you define a MIME type of whatever it's going to be taking in as a parameter or returning back. So produces, so the thing will produce a JSON back and consumes that it expects some kind of text payload or something like that coming in.
That's pretty straightforward. So with the more fun, no, maybe not enough. More complex things.
A bit more complex things.
The logic.
So this is the gateway service. This is the kind of the brains of the whole thing, right? So that one takes in the inputs from all the other services, and then it will also tells what to do to the lighting control service. So it takes lots of things in, calculates it somehow, and returns a value to the light. So say, set the lights to whatever.
Okay, so in this one, we are using pretty much the same as we did on the light control service, but we're also just using config. Config injection, the config part, which is we are injecting config values from outside. So for our case, we are using it. So in our Docker file, I think we're saying what kind of color we want to have on the lights. And this is so here you can pass values from like a config map or something if you're on OpenShift, or you can provide it with parameter values if you from the Java-D something, or a application properties file, or
properties files and stuff like that. And then you have the whole hierarchy of the property files really that will kind of override each other. But then you can also provide, the cool thing is that you can actually provide the default values and stuff in the code that, like, in case everything else fails and all the other properties files and stuff are gone, you still have something like the last kind of frontier with all the default values and stuff like that you can provide.
Yeah, and you can also see that these are combined with Inject, so CDI as well. So CDI is underlying very much a Microprofile.
Yeah.
It's perhaps the most crucial thing.
Yeah.
In it. And it's also, and of course we are using it for colors, but you might typically use this for things like QRIs, maybe passwords.
Configurations and stuff like that, because normally you would want to do that when, like, for example, you have different values for different environments. So your production environment will have one value, and the development environment would have another one, and test one would have another one, and so on, so on. So that's where this is where it becomes really useful. So you can actually override those things.
Yeah.
A bit more advanced thing, I guess, is the next one, is where you can do health checks. And health checks is actually pretty cool, not because you as a human, as a human, it's perhaps not very interesting, but for a computer, it's very easy to say, is this service up or down? That we typically would use a health check for, like automatic check if, is my service running, application running properly? So basically, if you're running it in a container or whatever and using, I don't know, say Kubernetes or something like that to control it. So this is one of the things it will be using to realize if my service is healthy or not. And if it's not healthy, I'll kind of kill it off and start another container with another one and see if that one is better. And so all this kind of pods and things that Kubernetes will do, and kind of try to rearrange things and turn things off and on and see if things are working and stable, and how many replicas it would have, and all those kind of things would be partially based on this health checks, right? And the cool thing is that you can actually control those with code, but we'll get back to that later. So
so this is the happy path then.
Yeah, so this is happy way, or happy, like everything is running and everything is fine.
Yeah.
And then you have a little bit less happy days, where you can actually get to define your own messages and stuff, saying like, well, what's actually going wrong and what's happening and what's up and down and things like that.
Yeah, so we're in the data field, you can say health check gateway not running properly, with this text we have added ourselves, so might be useful.
And then if you go to the next one, probably is the most interesting for so this is how you define it. So if this is oversimplified, obviously, to fit it on a slide and to make it very, very easy to kind of grasp in a way. But so, okay, can we connect to this thing? Yes, we can. Okay, fine. Then we'll just return it's up and we're happy. And if not, then we do it's down and dot build, and it will kind of say, well, it's not really up.
Yeah, and we also use this with data to add the text you saw on the previous slide.
Yep.
And like the only thing you have to do in order to create this method, in order to implement health check in your Microprofile application, is to add, at health this annotation, and you need to implement, and you need to do it on a CDI bean. You need to implement this health check interface, and override this one single method called call. And that's all there is.
Yep.
So this is primarily for computers, but for us humans, we might also be interested in, how well is my system running?
Yeah.
So we might be interested in metrics. So here's just a small snippet from like those kind of metrics you get out of the box. Because out of the box from Microprofile, you get metrics on things like how many threads are in use, how many CPU cores are used, memory footprint, all these things, like the infrastructure generic things from a computer.
And I mean, I remember when I was working a few years back on a quite big enterprise piece of software with lots of lines of code. I don't know, it was like closer to 500,000 lines of Java code. We ended up spending quite some time and quite a bit of code implementing those metrics and just putting them in the console of a application server running and stuff like that, and exposing it through whatever. And here you just do add something and it just magically appears there. It's pretty cool, and there will be more examples, I think, we have with the code and how to do that. And also, yeah, we'll show you some other resources where the things.
But we can like move forward to so here we're like on this slide you can see like more generic.
So this is built-in stuff.
Yeah, but you can also say that in our application we're interested in how many times we do try to change lights.
Yeah.
So we can add a metric on that, which is what you see on the screen now. So you can also add your application-specific metrics with quite easy annotations.
And what happens is that probably worth mentioning, just in case you wonder. I mean, what will happen is that whenever you do all those things, Microprofile will automatically put it onto. It will generate the URL for you. So anything, whatever you're using as your kind of starter URL. So if you're running locally, it will be like localhost 8080 or something like that. But then /metrics. This is where it's going to expose all of those things. In a way, it's human readable, but it's actually also machine readable in a way as well.
Yeah, and that's also worth mentioning, because if some of you listening out there are used to Prometheus, you'd recognize the format, I guess, because this is the Prometheus format. So you can connect these things onto Grafana or whatever tools you typically use without doing anything more.
That is pretty cool. Yeah, and then it will also create, actually, under metrics, it will also create different like /applications, different things that will be defined by. There are a few pretty good posts about that out there, written by Tommy E. people, I think, it's quite a few. So if you Google for that, you will find quite a explanation of how metrics are done and stuff like that. But I'll show you also maybe at the end, if we have time, I'll show you also another example.
Yeah.
But it's pretty easy, and it just kind of looks like a magic at some point in the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're heading on to fault tolerance, and on this slide you can see quite some fault tolerance in ones. So here we have a REST endpoint, get weather. So this is obviously from the weather service. And here we say that, okay, retry, max retries too. So like if it fails the first time, try again. Or you can skip the parameters, which would default to 5, I think, the default value. But you can specify yourself how many times are you interested in retrying. And you also have a circuit breaker, which it works pretty much the same way as the circuit breaker in your house. So that if you are hammering the service and it's down, then you want, so it just shortcuts everything. Yeah. So basically, I mean, if you don't do these kind of things, you will end up kind of DDoSing yourself, right? I mean, if you say you have a service and it's not able to contact that thing, and you've done something, it will just keep on hammering requests, and it will be too much noise and not really much useful stuff going on. So you might want to add a circuit breaker that will kind of, at some point, whenever it's not getting hold of that service, will just kind of stop nagging and just do something else. And we'll get back to do something else part in just a few slides. So just bear with us for a few more seconds. Yeah. So just another example from fault tolerance, it built consists of several things you can use. So timeouts is another one. So this one just throws an example if this call takes more than 2 seconds.
Yeah, so basically, one thing is that your request fails. So max retries and stuff was more like, okay, it failed twice. Fine, then I'll not do anything. Then I'll just keep on doing something else. But then here it's like, it's not failing, but it's just not responding in time. So it will kind of introduce a lot of slowness, I don't know if you can say that, into your system, and delays and stuff. So you might want to add that as well as a timeout, so you can do that. And then you have also another thing that fallback is another thing that you might want to do. So say you have a weather service, And that weather service is pretty nice and accurate and stuff, but it's a little bit slightly unstable. So then if that one fails, or if it's too busy, or I don't know, anything happens, you can actually add a fallback method that if that one fails, go and call the other method instead. And the other method might do things like defaulting to some kind of specific value, or trying another weather service that is less preferred but is still there. Yeah. You can do whatever you want, really.
Yeah, and I think you can chain them as well.
Yeah.
But one thing to mention here is that I think we spent a couple of hours debugging, is that this method, the fallback method, must have the same signature as the method you're annotating. You get strange exceptions. And it kind of makes sense, but
it totally makes sense. But it's a bit like it's not kind of one of those things that is not really well documented in a way. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So we could just speed up a little bit. REST client. So you're typically doing REST calls nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
Most people are. And in Microprofile, you can say that, okay, so this is in the gateway. This is where the gateway is trying to talk with the facade, like the light control service. So in the gateway, we create an interface with the same signature as we saw on the slide earlier for methods that are exposed on the light control service. So this is like saying, and this is actually going over REST HTTP calls.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see that these annotations are register REST client and dependent. I think that's not necessary anymore, but the register REST client thing is to tell the Microprofile out, okay, this is actually a REST endpoint. So even though you call this method as if it were on your same application, it really is a REST call under the hood.
Mm-hmm.
So this is, you define the interface, and then you, in the Java code where you are going to call the endpoint, you inject it and annotate it with @REST client, and then you do some black magic in a config file. So we need like the entire path to the class, or let's say not to the class, but to this interface, and then you need /mp_rest/URL, and then you add the actual URL to the REST service you are going to invoke.
Mm. That also took a little bit of time for us to figure, I think.
Yeah, and this is pretty neat in your code, but they're dragons. And by that we mean we spent quite some time during the initial development figuring out why isn't this working? Why do I get these strange errors and so on? And then we figured out that okay, this is so hard to do in. I think it was Fontail. We used an early version of Fontail, and we're having so much trouble with this, so let's try to use OpenLibet instead. And then suddenly everything was working. Like we didn't do any code changes and stuff, but it was working.
Yeah, and that's also this thing. So if you're having trouble with one of the implementations, that's the kind of cool part of that. Since it's a standard and others are implementing it, it is actually a it's actually a thing that where you can actually just switch an implementation and see if that one helps and if it works and stuff like that. It's supposed to be portable between those. I mean, some implementations might be a little bit behind, and some of them will be on like totally bleeding edge and implementing all the newest and coolest features. But in most of the cases, it will be pretty well in pretty well sync. I think. Yeah.
And it's also worth mentioning that it's getting more mature now. So the bug we're talking about is probably fixed like a long time ago. But we had some issues, and you also like these things aren't necessarily obvious, so you need to look it up, or know about it.
Yeah. So this is one of the things we were mentioning. This thing with the URL because it wasn't very obvious thing. Of like,
All right. Yeah. So maturity. It's getting more mature now, and also it's worth saying that the different app servers are, as Rustam said, they're updating in different speeds, and so. But that's also a benefit that if you don't like the one you're using, you can switch.
Yeah, and it's pretty much. I would say it's quite mature now. I would say it's pretty stable, and I would say it actually works pretty nicely. And then you have also the thing that we don't really mention in the slides, but then you have also a starter page which will help you to get started with all the features and stuff. You just go and pick ones that you want.
We come back to that one.
We'll get back to that, I think.
Yeah. So Microprofile in time and weather services. So we so far been talking a lot about gateway service and the light control service, but what about the time service and the weather service?
Yeah.
Well, much of the same. So the time service gets you the current time and details about that. So it's not that complex, you'd guess, and you're right. But what we do have is using OpenAPI, which is documentation of the API by adding annotations. And this is, Swagger is the most popular, well-known implementation of OpenAPI.
Yeah. So what Swagger does is they put like a pretty nice and neat UI on top of that thing as well. But in reality, this is what is in the back there, and it's a very nice way of documenting your own services. I mean, there are a few times when I was working with. Actually, again, with Microprofile and developing some stuff, small microservices and stuff, and I was like, "How is this? What's the URL to that thing I created and stuff?" And then you just go to OpenAPI and it will list you all the things, and you're like, "Oh yeah, this is how I was thinking, and this is what I was doing." So it's pretty nice way of doing stuff, and then you can also. Since you're using it for way of documenting things, you can obviously add the summaries and descriptions and stuff like that will actually tell you or tell the others what these things are supposed to be doing.
Yeah, and it's quite easy to do yourself as well, because here's what we do to produce the text you saw in the previous slide. So it's just an annotation at the operation, and you add the summary, and then you can add the description. The format is rapid. So the summary and description, those texts we wrote, you can see here. Like if there are some additional information you want to share, I think they are optional. At least the description is. It's pretty straightforward. Right, demo. So it's demo time. So let's start by starting the applications, which I forgot to do before I started. I'm admitting that. So we have 4 microservices, plus we have created a front end.
You might want to zoom in on your font of this thing.
Yeah, I might do. Perhaps a presentation mode.
That might be a good idea. But then at some point we need to figure out how to switch between screen and video camera, I think.
Yeah, my part. Okay. Do I have my... Okay.
Yeah, now
my terminal just disappeared. Terminal. Okay, so several of the containers are running in Docker, so we're doing Docker compose to adjust that. And to the one of you asking if about Quarkus and startup time, it's a bit fun to see. Okay, let's just wait a little bit until everything is started.
Yeah, so I don't know if you've been, we can have a look at that. We can scroll back. So this is a little bit of a question about Quarkus. So the speed of that thing is quite amazing, really, because what happens is that what you will see soon.
Yeah, so I'm just starting things. Bear with me for a moment.
Just bear with us.
This is like the demo gods happening again when you forget that you should have been doing something. So we do have a front end, which is stopping npm run, and the gateway is running outside of the. Oops. This is pretty fascinating.
Did you press the button?
No. Okay, so here you can see a lot of error messages. So we're debugging that for a little second. Okay. No connection. Okay, hello access.
Yeah, that's npm, and that's node.
Yeah, so this is like the front end starting up. Okay, no connection. That's a bit strange.
It just worked. Before.
Okay, here we are.
There you go.
Okay, so what? Already running. Okay, so let's see what happens if we try to run this. Might work. Okay.
But then we will have to switch between video and screen. I don't know how we do that.
Oh, yeah, right. We'll figure
You
out.
might need to like say stop sharing or something, I guess. Liberty.
Yeah. What? Okay, so it's not supposed to be running. Okay, this is strange. It's like the typical thing when everything is working when you're not on demo, and then you go in demo and nothing works.
I guess we did not sacrifice enough rubber ducks for the demo. I guess that's what the sacrifice currency of that or whatever. Oh, we got a question in the meantime. How Java EE8 is different from Microprofile?
Yeah, so like the short version of the Java EE8 is much bigger.
Yeah.
It's like the short, very short version.
So think of it as a subset of, in a way. Well, not really subset, but yeah, kind of. I mean, it will be more and will be. Microprofile has a few things that Java EE8 does not.
Yeah.
But in like, I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah, but like, you can also say that. Well, most application servers combine Java EE8 with Microprofile, so you can use features from Java EE8 or you can use features from Microprofile, depending on what you need in your context. So, yeah, it depends what you. It depends. Yeah. All right, so here we are with the demo. Now I think it's working. So, do you now see my slide? You see my computer, but not the lights, I guess.
I think at least as far as I can. You're welcome. I think as far as I can see, you don't see video of us, do you? No, I guess you don't. Then we try stop sharing.
Stop sharing for a little bit. Here we are. Now we can see us, I guess.
Maybe.
Right. Can anyone see us? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Good. Then you can remember those lights. Remember. Well, yeah. We have some lights here, and you can see that the lights are pretty dimmed down. And on this simple Vue.js front end, so it's just a simple front end doing REST calls to the backends, and the backends. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I forgot that I don't share my screen anymore. But we can actually do things like. So now I'm pushing a button, the set lights button. It's like the fun demo part of it. And now you can see in a moment that these three lights are blinking a bit. Yeah, so because of the lights, all lights here, and so you probably have a hard time seeing, but this one's green, and this one's green, and this one's white.
I don't know. It's very hard to. Yeah, well, you can see it on my hand, I guess. But then it's some kind of issue with the camera and the lights being too bright and the difference of the lights and stuff. But the thing is that those two are green and this is white. But the reason for that is that this one is like only shades of white and those are colored lamps.
So now I'm pushing the set lights button again. So this is like one click light change. And you can see that it's dimming up and down and so on. Which is like, this is the end result behind all the fun things we were talking about. This is like what it looks to a non-technical user.
So there is a lot of like calls and JSON and REST APIs and everything happening in the background, but then in reality, what you actually see is the lights changing slightly color and changing a bit of. So what we did for the demo, so you can actually see things happening, we added a bit of randomness there. So the brightness and stuff like that will change for each time we refresh things, just because. We might have. There are people saying that they can see video and app, but I'm not sure if it is. Are you still having problems? There might be Crowdcast that is having a bit trouble.
Yeah.
Now I cannot see myself either.
and seen the lights change. Well, cool.
Hey, perfect. So
Yeah.
you get, okay, somebody
Okay.
have seen
So
even the video and the lights change.
Yeah,
Woo.
so now I run the set lights command again. You can see that lights. Hopefully you can see that the lights are twitching. And get into lots of lights. So yeah, so that's like the practice. So now I just dim them down because they're a bit disturbing to us. Bright lights right ahead of us.
Yep.
But perhaps we should show some code as well. I think like the time is running fast. I think this is so fun that we're like speaking for way too long. Sorry about that. But okay, so now I hope you can see my screen again. So yeah, so we're doing lots of printout. That's perhaps not interesting, but if we stop the services, just this one's to the one of you talking about Quarkus and startup time. So now like I'm just stopping the services.
Yeah, so we can actually start them again. And while we're doing that, there is a question.
Okay, so
which of Microprofile implementation is most suited for IoT domain, and in general, which are most reliable for production usage? I would say they're quite stable. Most of them. I mean,
yeah, we have been using like just to mention that we've been using Fontile, Open Liberty, Quarkus, Cumulus, and some Payar Micro. Like in different, and it depends. Sorry to say, but like they have different weaknesses and different strengths. Like, but most of them are supported by huge companies. Been doing this for a long time, so they know. Like, yeah, they are reliable, I'd say.
Yeah, I usually, I mean, lately I have no affiliations to IBM really, but I've been landing quite often on Open Liberty, and it seemed I didn't really have much trouble, but I think all of them will be working most of the time. We didn't have that much trouble with, I think we had only, I think we're hearing
Actually, you
some.
should see if they want to.
Yeah. There is some kind of voices on the other end, but okay.
Yeah. So like they have different strengths and weaknesses. So, but I'd say, yeah, I tend to stick to either Open Liberty or Quarkus if like I had to choose one. But there's no right. Sorry to say it depends, but it's really true. So, but back to Quarkus, you can see that here I started my services again after stopping them. You can say Stucky Compose up. And you can see time service, this one is the one made in Quarkus. So time service, well, here it starts, down here at this line, Quarkus is started. And that is when Fontale, the weather service is in Fontale, is starting to do something.
So basically, what happened is that Quarkus was done booting up before even the other one started booting up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty response to that question. Yeah, perhaps we should move on. We got some more.
We should. We have very few minutes.
Very few minutes. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, now we're sharing screen. Good. All right. So, what have we learned then? We obviously had a lot of fun, but we also learned some things that we hope that we can share with you. So, like one of them is that new cool things keep on coming, such as the things we struggled with initially have been sorted out since then, and Quarkus has come since we started. But also things like the Microprofile starter that Rustam talked about. So when you are going to start a new project in Microprofile, you can go to start.microprofile.io, and you can say that, oh, I want to use Microprofile version so and so and Java version so. I want examples of these things, and I want to use Payar Micro or Cumulus or whatever. And then when you push the download button, you get a POM file and the project set up and all this, so it's easy to get started. And this one came not that long ago. Yeah, another thing we learned is that Yagni, you ain't gonna need it. So we started out by using Lombok a lot across our application. Lombok is a tool that generates much of the boilerplate code for you. Like by adding the annotation at getter, you don't have to write your own getters, and same with the required arguments constructor. There are lots of these, And we figured out once that right before doing a presentation.
Yeah, I think once we did it, we were kind of ended up with the killing it off and just commenting and deleting it from the code and making it run just last second before the presentation because it somehow broke something in one of the application servers, and it was some kind of. I think it was a problem with Maven.
It was a problem with Maven,
Yeah.
which was not really related to Lombok, but we thought it was related to Lombok because, well, we didn't understand the error. So we just tried to figure out one end to start, and we figured out that okay, so this introduces lots of complexity that we don't really need. It's like not that much boilerplate anyway. So we figured out we didn't need it.
Yep.
And your mileage may of course vary.
Yep.
Yeah, and the same we did some quite fancy advanced
logging.
Advanced in quotation marks, but logging. So we're using log4j and we're injecting it with the slide here. You can see like a hack to inject the logger in your code. And we had like lots of logger things spread around our code. Then we figured out, oh well, we ain't gonna need it because we are running things in containers. We're only printing things to the console. So why don't we use system out println? And of course, we are enterprise developers, so we created an application scope printer to print the print line. So for your tests, you don't do it and things like that.
Yep.
I figured out that this was more than good enough. Yeah, and it also fits well with the 12-factor app thing and more of the cloud way of thinking. So you can do this. App servers differ.
Well, I guess we mentioned that
we
already,
mentioned that.
but app servers are like snowflakes. They're all unique.
Yeah, SmallRye. You can go to smallrye.io and read more about it. It's like one implementation of Microprofile that can be used by different app servers.
Yeah,
and it's an original Red Hat initiative, so it's been heavily used in Quarkus, in Thorntail, and in Wildfly, which are all application servers from Red Hat. And also it's starting to get used in OpenLiberty by IBM.
Yeah.
So who knows what happens, but it's and this one came just a year ago or so.
Yeah.
So it's still growing. Yeah. All right.
So like a few honorable mentions before we will finish it off. So really quick, this is not really so the next slide would be like nothing really Microprofile related, but just worth mentioning is that whenever you have jars lying around that you don't really have control over and you cannot just put on a public repository and stuff, you can always create a local Maven repository. So in our case, that would have been those jars that are to control the lights.
That's a proprietary jar file which you had to register and log in and look around to be able to download, which were not in Maven Central or anything. So
so basically you create local Maven repository. We will not really discuss much how, just you'll find it very easily. There are lots of guides to explain it how, just a tip for you.
Yeah, and a concrete tip on the Philips Hue API. The Philips Hue. If you want to program with those kind of bulbs yourself, you're perfectly fine to do that, but please use the API. They do produce a REST API, which is much easier to use, and also the SDK, the jar files that we've been using, they're deprecated. So
they will get deprecated in some time in the future. So do not use the jars that are provided, and probably it won't be that easy to get hold of them anyway. Use the REST APIs instead.
Yeah. All right.
Faking an API is also a thing that we kind of have done, and this is kind of the faking an endpoint. That's what you would usually end up doing. So it's I guess not much to talk about.
Yeah, not really. We just figured out after programming a while against those light bulbs that we wanted to be able to program without bringing the light bulbs with us. That's a little bit impractical.
It's very handy to do things like fake APIs when you're programming things at the airports. It's a bit weird to pull up the lights and a bunch of things at the airport. All
right. One more thing that's not very specific as such, but like Docker Compose we're using, and we like them.
Yeah, it's been quite fun to Dockerize those components. It's easy to start and get it up and running and stuff like that. So not really much to.
Yeah, and all the different app servers provide Docker files typically, so it's not really hard either.
Yeah.
But,
so let's talk very, very quickly through future work, like things that we will be doing in the future or planning to do.
Yeah, hopefully. So just a quick reminder that these are standards from Microprofile 3.0, and you've seen us using most of them, but you haven't seen us using neither JVT, JOT, I guess it's not JOT propagation, nor you haven't seen us been using open tracing. That's obviously future work. To use open tracing and use JOT application and propagation.
So it's adding more security to the lights. That's kind of thing that we'll probably look into later.
Yeah. And of course, also keeping up with the new versions of Microprofile is, we keep trying to do that all the time. So Microprofile is still evolving. The discussions are going on what's going to be in the next version and so on, and we're of course using the newest version. We
kind of try to keep it up and update it to new versions and stuff like that. The other thing that we really want to do is to add a bit more of fun stuff with Kubernetes and OpenShift and stuff like that, and also maybe even an Istio to see if we can do like the routing and all this kind of APIs and stuff like that for that can do for us.
And we can also say that quickly that Microprofile fits very well with OpenShift and Kubernetes and Istio and all of it. So it's an easy fit, and there are people out there doing talks on this much better than we do. Like Emily Jiang, for example, has specific talks on Microprofile and Istio.
Yep.
So if you're interested in that, go. Just
search for Emily.
Yeah. All right. Everything we've been talking about, at least the code and the documentation we created as well, is in GitHub. We accept pull requests happily. So, or if you have questions or issues or whatever, we're happy to get feedback.
Yep.
So here's the link. I think we'll also publish the slides afterwards, I guess.
Yeah, I guess there will be also a video of that, but So everything is on GitHub. So this is the URL. Go there and you'll see the code. We have also written a few things, like a few blog posts and stuff about getting started with Microprofile and stuff like that. So the first one is the link from the previous slide. So and then the second one is this first part of a kind of series of posts that I kind of started on writing to explain the basics and getting started of Microprofile and stuff like that. So that one is more about defining endpoints and stuff like that, and how you can define different MIME types and return different things and generate files and things like that.
Yes. And like the lower one is, I started getting questions from here and there, like what is Microprofile, what do I use it for, why, and that's like a brief overview, and it's maybe kind of a summary of what we've been talking about for an hour now. Summarized in a short blog post. But of course, you can also go to microprofile.io, the official webpage, and get even more information.
Yeah. And sorry.
Yeah, I was. Go ahead.
No, sorry. So this is our last slide. Or do we need to?
We can show the last slide with our Twitter handles as well.
Yeah, so this is us. If I tried to follow up with the questions and stuff in the chat, but I might have overlooked some. If I did, I'm really sorry about that, and just feel free to type them over again or copy paste them or ping us on Twitter. So this is us, two of us on Twitter. Or any other kind of media to get hold of us is fine. I guess that would be it. In case you have more questions or anything, either shoot it, like write it down in the chat or ping us on Twitter later.
Yeah.
So on my end, I just want to thank you for your time and for the great presentation.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure that people are dropping off due to other work obligations. So we can wrap up this call right now. But yeah, I'm sure as the community, we will stay in touch and we'll be in touch. Okay.
Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you,
Oh,
everyone.
thanks. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye.